Samuel, one of my favorite prophets. And 1st and 2nd Samuel is a great story of David and Samuel. And chapter 30, we're going to look at, with Billy Graham, what a great ministry he had. But when we accept Christ, we all start our own ministry. When we become a follower of Jesus Christ, we are expected to have our own ministry. We are expected to minister. There's a certain work that God gives us to do. It's not a work like we go to work. This Sunday starts getting closer to the end of the day, and it's 8, 9 o'clock at night. We go, time to go to bed because we got to get up in the morning to go to work. Well, we don't view this work that God gives us like that. No, the work that God gives us, we view with an excitement. And it's not something that we have to do. It's something that we want to do. Everybody has their own ministry. When we get into becoming, a follower of the Lord, He gives us our own ministry. Some of it's a great ministry where there's thousands and thousands of people. Some of us is just a ministry to maybe one group. Some of us, maybe it's just a ministry to one person, maybe just our own family. But all of us have a work to do and a ministry to do. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to take this story in 1 Samuel chapter 30, and we're going to look at it through our own eyes, through the ministry that each and every one of us have. And there's so much in here, and it's just an encouraging word this morning, an encouraging word for you that if you don't have a ministry, that you should have some type of ministry in your life where you minister to people. Some of us may go on to be like a Billy Graham, where we're going to speak in front of thousands of people. Some of us maybe we'll only speak to that clerk over at the grocery store. Some of us maybe only to our family members. But each of us should have a ministry, and that's what we're going to look at today. And I encourage you today with this message to have a ministry. We're not going to read the whole chapter, but pretty much the whole chapter of 1 Samuel chapter 30 is what we're going to look at. It starts out in verse 1. Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the 3rd day that the Amalekites had invaded south and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. Now, a couple things I want to point out here real quick. This is the story of David. We know David. As a young man, he came against the giant, and he killed the giant. But what I don't think we realize is that he didn't just kill the giant and then become this great king. He killed the giant, and then for 10 years, he ran from Saul. See, after he killed the giant, Saul was so impressed with him that Saul said, "Come and be my armor bearer." And the armor bearer was to the king, and he carried the armor for the king. And then David got into battle and got into war, and he became so popular because God had blessed him so much that he was a great warrior, and all the people knew David. And when they would come back from David, they would sing this song about how David killed the 10,000, but only Saul killed 1,000. And Saul became jealous, and Saul tried to have David killed. And David ran for 10 years. He ran from Saul trying to kill him. So it wasn't like we think, he killed David, and then his life, he became this great king. He ran for 10 years, and it got to the point where he actually went over to the other side, to the Philistines, and he joined with the Philistines because where he was in his own country, it was very harmful for him. Saul was trying to kill him, so he came over to the Philistines, and that's where we're at now. That's where we're in the story at now. He is in the camp of the enemy. He's at this place called Ziklag, and he's out fighting a battle. He leaves everybody behind. He takes his men, and they're all out fighting. And while they're out fighting and they leave everyone behind, the enemy comes in and they steal everything from him. It's kind of like our enemy, the devil. He wants to steal and rob and destroy everything that we have. And that's what they do. That's what happens here. And so it says here that the enemy comes in and they take captive the women and those that were there from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but they carried them away and went their way. Verse 3 says, So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David had 2 wives, and they had been taken captive as well. Verse 6 says, Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his son and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord. David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Sometimes in our lives, when the devil comes in and attacks us, we're down. We're down, we're tired, we're beat. And I know that there's this song by 10th Avenue that sometimes I get like that as well. You know, the devil really attacks. Sometimes the devil attacks hard. And it's hard to keep going and fighting and you get tired. Just like all these people, they came back and they saw they were out fighting and they thought they were out doing this courageous work, and they come back and everything's gone and they were tired. They said they wept until they couldn't weep anymore because they were so tired. Sometimes that's what the devil does to us. He attacks us and you get so tired. You say, you know what, I just want to give in. I don't even want it anymore. But we have to go back to the Lord. We go back to the Lord, and that's where we find our strength in the Lord. We find our strength in the Lord to keep going on, to keep fighting the battle. We leave for Cuba in 1 week, and I always find it up until the point to where we leave that the devil always attacks us. He's always attacking us because I believe the devil knows how powerful the conference is that we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks in Cuba. And what we have in Cuba is we have probably about 400 to 500 children's workers throughout the whole island that we meet in the center of the island in this city that's in the center. So everybody can come, no one has to come any further than anybody else. And the 400 to 500 people meet there, and we have some amazing services at night. And we have 3 days of teaching where we strengthen the people that work with the children. And after the conference, they all go back to their churches, strengthened, with more knowledge on how to reach the children better for Christ. And so I believe it's a powerful time, and the devil wants to keep it from us. So I see every time that we go on a mission trip that the devil likes to attack. He likes to attack us in many ways. And so I know my wife and I, we always, sometimes a couple of weeks before the trip, something will go on, and we'll be all on edge, and then we'll start getting all grouchy with each other, and then we sit back and go, oh, wait a second. We got a mission trip coming up. Okay, and then we come look at each other and go, okay, we see what's going on. And then we start praying through it. We go back to the Lord to get through it. This is what David does. David and his group, they're so grieved that what has happened. David says that he went back to the Lord. We got to go back to the Lord to take back what the devil has stolen for us. I don't know how long you guys have been around some praise and worship, but there's that one song, you got to take back the devil. How's that one? Do you guys remember that one song? I can't remember, but he's under my feet, he's under my feet. Satan is under my feet. We got to keep Satan under our feet. And so it says here in verse 7, it says, Then David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, Please bring the ephod here to me. And Abiathar brought the ephod to David. Now the ephod, it was an elaborate garment, like a breastplate that had a bunch of jewels on it. The high priest wore it. And David gets this particular piece of garment, and he inquires of the Lord, saying to the Lord, Shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And the Lord answers him and says, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them without fail, and recover all. So David went, and he and his 600 men went who were with him, and came to the brook Besar, where those who stayed were left behind. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind, who were so weary that they could not cross the brook Besar. And this is what I want us to look at today. David takes, now remember, they come back from a battle, so they're already worn out. They come back,
and they see what's happening. So now that they're already worn down, they become even worn down and more discouraged even more. And so David has to take these 600 men and go and pursue this group of people that have taken everything from them. So they're already worn down. And he takes the 600 men and he gets to this brook, and it's a brook that they have to cross to keep pursuing. And there's 200 men that say, I can't go any further. I'm exhausted. There's 200 that couldn't go. So David now has to leave 1/3 of his men behind. And these men, they stay back. They stay back and they watch the stuff that's left. They stay back, and whatever was left, they stay back and watch. Now see, this didn't happen before. When they went out to battle, there was no one that they left behind to watch their stuff. David took the whole group and went out to battle, and there's no one left behind. And I can see this in my ministry as well. Years ago, it's been about 12 years now since we've been on our first missions trip. And every time we've always gone on our mission trip, we've always had someone that's been able to stay back and watch the stuff. My mother-in-law would come over from Naples. She lived in Naples, and she would watch the kids and make sure that they got to school every day while my wife and I were out on the mission field. And we'd be gone for a week or 10 days, and we would go knowing that, hey, there's somebody back there watching this stuff. That's what my mother-in-law would do, or my mom, or my brother. There was always somebody there. The past, I'm going to say, 4 or 5 years, my wife hasn't gone with me at all because my mom's passed away, her mom's passed away, her dad's passed away, I have a brother that's passed away. So there's really no one left behind. So my wife says, I can't go because I have to stay behind and watch the stuff. And what I want us to look at today is these 200 that stayed back and watched the stuff. These 200 that stayed back and watched the stuff. See, let's go further on. We're going to skip the next, from 11 to 20, we're going to skip, and I'm just going to tell you what happened. From here, David and his 400 men, they go forward and they find the people, and they go into Egypt and all this different stuff. And they find the people, and they pretty much take back all this stuff. They get back everything. And in verse 21, we're going to pick up here, and now this is what happens. David and the 400 are coming back, and they meet the 200, and they've got all the stuff with them. The women, the children, the ox, everything that's been taken, it's all gotten back, and they're coming back now. Verse 21 says, Now David came to the 200 men who had been so weary that they could not follow David, whom they also had made to stay at the brook Besor. So they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were there with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted them. Verse 22 says, Then all the wicked and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, Because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered, except for every man's wife and children, that they may lead them away and depart. I want you to see the leadership of David here. Verse 23 says, But David said, My brethren, you shall not do so with what the Lord has given us, who has preserved us and delivered into our hand the troop that came against us. Verse 24 says, For who will heed you in this matter? But as his part is who goes down to battle, so shall his part be who stays by the supplies. They shall share alike. So it was from that day forward, he made it a statute and ordinance for Israel to this day. So in other words, what happens is the people come back, the 400 come back, and they've got everything. And there's men in the group that they see the 200 and they say, no, they don't get anything because they didn't come with us. They stayed behind and they didn't fight the battle with us, so they don't get anything. But David, being such a mighty man of God and walked with God, he said, no, we share everything with them because they stayed back and watched the stuff. We see Billy Graham, and Billy Graham stands up in front of thousands and thousands of people in stadiums all over the world. And he gets the praise, and he's just died, and what great ministry he has, and he had a great ministry, and I'm not taking anything away from that. And I'm not taking anything away from the person that's in front of everybody, because I'm usually always the person that's in front of everybody. In Cuba, we stand up, and I'm the one that leads the group. And they go, oh, there's Pastor Mike. But what they don't realize is there's my wife that's staying back watching the house. And my wife that's not getting any credit for it. the one that ran over to Office Depot yesterday to pick up name tags, so everyone at the conference could have the name tags. My wife, who after working at Trinity for 6 or 8 hours with all these lovely children, drives over to the t-shirt places and picks up 250 t-shirts that I take to Cuba, and I pass out. My wife, who stays back when I'm not there all week long, and has to do everything that I don't do, and cleaning the pool and the rabbit cage, because we have a rabbit that runs around and cutting the grass, and everything that I don't do for a week, it's now laid on her. And so she's like one of the 200 that stayed back to watch the stuff. But she doesn't get credit for it, because when we go to Cuba, I stand up in front of everybody. Oh, Pastor Miguel, oh, you're such, oh, Pastor Miguel. And I'm up in front of everybody taking all the glory, just like Billy. But see, Billy had a pilot that flew him everywhere. Billy had a mechanic that checked his plane. Billy had a secretary that took all his notes and all his calls. Billy had somebody come in and clean his office. In each and every job that was done, so that Billy could come up and stand in front of everybody, was just as important as his job. And whatever ministry you have, whether it's to one person or 100 people or 1,000 people, it's just as important as what God had Billy Graham do. Because not everybody can be Billy Graham. There's a lot of people that want to be Billy Graham because they don't realize they need to be one of the 200. And this is what we're going to look at today. There's just a few, 5 quick comments that I want us to see. See, there's always someone that's behind the scenes staying with the stuff. There's always someone behind the scene. And there always needs to be someone behind the scene. Here at Grace Place, I come in and I stand up here and you guys see me, but what you don't realize is Elaine cleans the church for us. And Stan was sick a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you noticed or not, but we were scrambling around because Stan runs the music every week. You know that guy, behind, he's not the Wizard of Oz back here. He's back here every week.
Nope.
And let me tell you, Stan, when you're off, we know it. So you see, there's always somebody that's behind the scene. So regardless of what your ministry is, whether it's behind the scene or it's out in front of the scene, it's very important. And that's why we need to have a ministry, because we need people to be behind the scenes. And God gives us people to be behind the scenes. The second thing I want us to see is it can be more demanding to stay by the stuff than to be out in front, than to be on the battlefield. You have to have determination, willpower, ingenuity to be behind the scene. See, what you don't realize is all those videos that we saw, Diane picked all those videos out for us this past week. She's behind the scenes. She's staying with the stuff. And then she gets it over to Stan, and they have to go online and find it all on YouTube, and it has to be downloaded to the computer. It's all behind the scenes stuff. It's demanding work that we don't even realize as we're standing up watching this video. And that video last week that had like some amazing, nature stuff. There was, loved it. There was the mountains, and it was absolutely beautiful. What we don't understand was it's pretty demanding. The Stan sits behind his laptop, week after week after week, it's demanding, more demanding to be behind the scenes than it is to be out in front. It's more demanding. The other thing I want us to see is it requires a certain quality of person to do this type of work. You have to be faithful. You have to have a servant spirit. You never get recognition. When we walk around, everybody, oh, pastor, everybody ever comes up, oh, Stan, that was a great sound of music, wasn't too loud, wasn't too soft. Oh, Diane, that was great last week. Everybody wants recognition. Everybody wants to be recognized. But those that stay behind the scene, that's where the hard work is. It requires a certain quality of person to be faithful, day in and day out, week in and week out, to be faithful. You have to have a servant's spirit.